I mean, there's this concept of small levers can swing open big doors, right?
So the smallest, most effective lever is recognizing that once you have a relationship with somebody, they care more about you as a person than they care about the service you can provide. I see this mistake more in small business. I used to call it death by $100. I think it's probably death by $1,000 now. This is more about consistency than it is about the flashy techniques or strategies.
I run into so many firms. Each practice area has 3 client profiles. They got 7 practice areas. They got 21 client profiles.
More choice is not better. Don't overthink this. The more you niche down, the more specific you get, the more business shows up. And nobody wants to believe me that it's that simple.
So there's 2 things that I want to hone in on here. One is,
most people don't know this, but we finally have direction from Google on what AI is going to look like.
Now why don't you lead with that? Well, hello and welcome to the Profit with Law podcast. I'm your host, Moshe Amsal, and we're in for a treat today. We've got a guest for you. We're going to be talking everything marketing. Before we jump into that, let me just tell you, we just wrapped up a workshop we did in Miami. We had a bunch of brand new, prospective clients, right, in the room. But really, we do this workshop. We call it the 100K per month workshop, and you can decide whether it's 100K per month revenue or profit, depending on where you are in your business, but it is for everybody. Essentially, what we do in this workshop is we basically help you to understand and see how much we overcomplicate business and how you don't have to be on the 20-year growth plan. Instead, you could be on the 1-year growth plan. And I mean, we had some outstanding success in that workshop, and that guests were leaving with completely different views on their firms, new action plans for the upcoming 90 days, a clear vision on how they're going to create the level of income they finally will be able to get for their families. We are hosting another one of these workshops. So if this is something that you're interested in attending, you want to check it out. And the next one's going to be in Montville, New Jersey. It's in suburbia, New York, about 40 minutes from Newark Airport, a little bit longer from LaGuardia and JFK. But we're going to spend 2 days together, and we're going to look at your firm and with a new lens, right? Complete bird's eye view. Take yourself out of the day-to-day and finally look at your business as a business. And let's see if we can help you to unlock 100K per month in your law firm. If this sounds like something that you would love to have, you would love to make happen, you definitely want to check it out at profitwithlaw.com/LFG 2026. That is LFG like law firm growth, or let's F and go 2026. Profitwithlaw.com/LFG 2026. Hope to see you there. My guest today is Cameron LiButti. Cameron is the founder of BidView Marketing, where he helps professional service firms, particularly law firms, improve positioning, attract higher quality leads, and build more predictable growth systems. With a background in engineering and over a decade in digital marketing, he brings a highly analytical, systems-driven approach to solve marketing challenges and delivering measurable ROI. Cameron, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
It's my pleasure. Now, what I didn't share, and I'm going to share it right now because I love calling myself out, is Cameron and I are doing this again. So we met, and my team had moved me. We previously had been recording all of our episodes on Zoom, and my video editor said, look, I really need the raw video files. Zoom's not giving me that. I would prefer if we went to Riverside. So they evaluated it. They did all their testing they needed to do. They moved us over to Riverside. I'm in a brand new app. Not the first recording I'm doing, but for some reason, we started, and I was in a different place than I had been the last time, and there was a record button I needed to hit that I did not hit. So we went on for 40 minutes creating this amazing content for you guys, and we were just 2 guys chatting in a room because it wasn't getting recorded for you. So we're going to try to do this again. So Cameron, we're going to kick it off with just people getting to know who you are. So give me the background, the journey. How in the world did you get into marketing, from engineering to marketing, and then to law
So
firms?
that was a mechanical engineer in Chicago designing mechanical systems in downtown, and I I was joke. I love building things and solving problems, and I thought in college that's what an engineer did, and a lot of that was just follow the guidelines, design what we give you, and that was not my favorite thing. But entrepreneurship was where I wanted to be, and my first stop on that journey was marketing. And if I was going to go into business, I had to know how to market it. And in 2013, I started marketing my own companies, and I did that until 2019 when a doctor actually reached out, or we were just talking. It was Christmas, and he said, "You talk about marketing a lot differently than people who call me." And I jokingly said, "Well, I have nothing to sell you because I didn't have a business." And he said, "Well, can you help me?" And I don't have a way to take your money. And I set up the LLC, and I actually had it, but I got it going for him, and we tripled his phone calls. That was in the easy days of optimizing Google business profiles, and the internet. It sounds crazy to think the internet was still super messy in 2019, but it was, and that was it. We took off from there, and we grew with a lot of doctors. The doctors having their, a lot of their friends being lawyers, and their consultants started to refer us. And so we started working with lawyers. So today we pretty much work with just professionals. We will work with some non-professionals, but yeah, our clientele, our doctors, lawyers, and engineers that's our sweet spot.
Awesome. All right. So marketing. I mean, there's so many marketing agencies out there, marketing companies out there, and each one is pouting their expertise, their secret sauce. This is the right way to do things. What I gather from our last conversation, from the notes that I've read about you, is you don't like looking at the tactics and talking about the tactics, but instead you like looking at the big picture strategy. So when you meet with somebody, where are most firm owners getting it wrong, or where do they have blanks that need to be filled in when it comes to strategy? Do they even know who they're after, what they're trying to find when they're marketing, or do we even need to go further back than that?
So there's three distinct questions in there. We'll start at the end, but you asked, like, who are we marketing to? I would say most people who come to us have a good idea of who their brand is and who their ICP is, their ideal customer profile. Not always, and sometimes we are working with them to help identify that. Like, we are working with actually a pretty sizable real estate company right now. They know who their ICP is. They didn't understand who their brand was, so we help them there. But generally, most businesses come to us knowing their brand and their ICP. You sort of hinted at this, but I am agnostic on how we win. I'm not going to come in and tell you you have to do. I was in a call this morning with a client. We want to do geofencing. I'm like, okay, how come? I don't know. It sounds fun. I don't know. He didn't say fun. He said it sounds like it'll work. I'm like, why does it sound?
I
Like,
heard
I
about it
heard
on a
about, like, I
podcast.
don't. Do you want to do it? Like, I don't. SEO, paid ads, geofence. There's so many ways to go about this, but like, where are your clients? What's the best ROI? What can you sustain financially? So I don't use this term as much anymore, but I used to call it death by $100. I think it's probably death by $1,000 now. I see this mistake more in small businesses. They'll spend $100 to $1,000 to get no results 100 times. And they're like, I spent all this money on marketing and I have nothing to show for it. And it's like, there was no consistency, there was no strategy, there was no idea what the goal was. And so usually we start at a higher level, but what I'm getting at is we start with a competitor analysis. Where are your competitors already winning? Okay, if we refer to a client that I spoke to this morning since it's fresh on my mind. They have a competitor with a huge budget who's just going crazy on YouTube. They can't compete with that. If you have $50,000 a month and you want to hire a videography team and pay for all those YouTube ads, sure, we'll go compete there. It's driving them crazy, but it's my job to tell them what that costs. Where my client is just literally dog walking, and we did the analysis. SEO, like the door is wide open, and that brand is so new and fresh. They're pouring all of their dollars into beautiful video assets, and they're leaving the door wide open on the local SEO side. And my client is more well established. Well, they don't have that marketing budget for other reasons. They are kicking their butt all over the place on local organic leads. Like if you search anything on AI, you search anything traditional SEO, they're showing up. So the strategy from the beginning was, what can we sustain financially? Where are our opportunities? Let's attack that. We do have the client that show up and say, hey, we have these huge ad budgets and we're ready to go. And that's where they want to go. Okay, we'll go there. But it always starts with an audit. That's my engineering background. Is how much heat does this building need? I don't know until I do the audit. I'm not going to sell you anything otherwise. We have access to all the tactics and strategies. We have incredible partners that provide us data and tools to do these things. But at the end of the day, it's start with an audit, find where you're going to win, and find what's sustainable, right? I don't love pouring effort and dollars to figure out 3 months in, like, oh, this is too expensive. So that has happened a few times, and I try to be really transparent up front. Like, this is more about consistency than it is about the flashy techniques or strategies.
Yeah. So, I mean, there's this concept of small levers can open or swing open big doors, yep. Right? And what I'm hearing you say is that it's not so much about needing to pull a big lever. It's more about being able to open or swing open a big door, right? So what are some of the most common small levers or minor adjustments or tweaks that you find that you make with a lot of clients when they come in that makes a big impact in their overall results?
So the smallest, most effective lever is recognizing that once you have a relationship with somebody, they care more about you as a person than they care about the service you can provide. This is a really hard concept for professionals to understand. They want to continue to showcase their knowledge around a subject. Now, depending on your law firm, most laws aren't updating so fast that you have so much new information. I will give you one caveat because they're one of our clients. A tax attorney, they have endless amounts of information to share because the tax law is just changing all of the time. So he has this great pipeline of just new information that is coming out weekly monthly, because there's just so many changes. On the other side, most professional businesses, their industries just don't change that fast. And so understanding that a small lever is they have a relationship with you. And this is hard to get people to comprehend. Medical practices seem to be understanding it a little bit more. But in a law firm, how can you be sending newsletters? It's simple. Like this you don't even have to run this through a marketing company. You can set up a server yourself or use one of these, MailChimp type things and be sending out a newsletter about, just little touch points once a month. It don't overthink this. Just kind of idea dump, depending on, look at who's on I end up operationally talking about this a lot more than marketing wise, but who's on your staff? Who can handle this? Who can you hand this off to? Is there a junior person in your office that can deal with this? Most of our businesses, medical or law, are having somebody junior in the office look at these and pull these together. When you get good at it, it takes 30 minutes a month. And we see the most outsized returns on somebody who's sending a monthly touch point through a newsletter. And nobody wants to believe me that it's that simple. It really can be that simple sometimes. So that's probably the smallest lever that we try to get people moving on quickest, is just figure out how we can get these touch points once a month. And all the law firms that listen to your practice, but usually people who are working with professional services have friends in their income bracket. They're golfing or they're out to brunch and they're just, oh, I had this problem or this thing. And, hey, they worked with you 18 months ago. They forgot your name, but they just saw that newsletter. Even if they're deleting it, they saw the subject line from such and such law, like, oh, they did such a great job. I worked with them. And those are the little moments that build the flywheel that are hard to even quantify, right? To always be like, I need to see the ROI on my ad spend or my marketing dollars. Like those little pieces, it's hard to quantify, but after a couple months, years, like, oh, wow, I'm just so busy all the time. Where are all these people coming from? That happened for unrelated, but similar. My wife started her business, not in law, but lactation consulting. And she's like, we got to do more marketing. I'm like, you need to chill out, because once your name gets out there and people start sharing this, you're going to have too many patients. 6 months later, she's like, I'm really glad we didn't start marketing, because as soon as she talked to 3 or 4 pediatricians, they all like, oh, she's wonderful. And, those are the little moments in time that add up that, 6 to 12, 18 months down the road, your business is spinning and you don't even realize the little levers you were pulling were making such a outsized gains.
Yeah, it's interesting. In today's day of attribution, we can attribute everybody who's coming through the intentional avenues, right? So you're spending ad spend, you're doing paid media in different ways. All of these can be tracked, and you know exactly where they're coming from. So if you simply look at everything else and just put it in an organic bucket, then you can see if the efforts that you're making are actually creating change or movement or growth on the organic side of the business. I almost feel like paid spend, paid media is a way to add on to the organic base or the organic layer. Like if you try to win with just paid media, it becomes a very difficult game to win at, because the cost of your marketing is such a big component of the total revenue. It becomes hard to make money just off of that. But when you layer that on top of organic, then it becomes much more doable. And when you're bringing in those extra cases through paid media, they're not needing to cover overhead, because overhead was covered by your organic growth, right? So like it's almost like the path to being able to monetize or be profitable off of paid ads is layered on top of a good organic strategy. I want to go back to something you said early. You kind of passed over it, kind of like I passed over the question, but I think it's important for us to talk about, because I run into so many firm owners who they're a small firm themselves, or 2 or 3 attorneys, and they've got 6 different practice areas listed on their website. And one thing that you mentioned is, you said, hey, when most people come to me, they know who they are as a firm, and they know who their ICP is. They know who their ideal client profile is. And I run into so many firms that they've got 7 or 7, like each practice area has 3 client profiles. They got 7 practice areas. They got 21 client profiles. Like, oh yeah, this is who I serve. And when you approach marketing from, I'm trying to serve everybody, that becomes really, really difficult to win at, because there's only so much effort you can put in. And when I say effort, I mean time or money, right? You're going to put resources into your marketing and you're hoping to get a result, but that effort gets diluted when you're trying to talk to more than one person. So Cameron, can you talk about this, or talk to this for our audience? Like, how should somebody approach this? And if they're sitting down today listening to this podcast and they fall into that category of having multiple ICPs, what do you recommend for somebody like that?
My favorite analogy or story is grocery stores. So there was, can't remember, I want to say it was like a chips manufacturer, like a Lay's, and they went into a grocery store and they put up 10 flavors, and they put it like right in the front of the store, and they watched, I don't know if they used cameras or how they tracked this, but people would come in, they would look at all the options, and they would buy none. They were overwhelmed by their decision. And then they would put in 2 or 3 options, and I want to say it was chips. They would purchase more. So this is a famous case study of more choice is not better when it comes to service offerings or product offerings. And so then that leads to, think about if you have 2 or 3 attorneys in your practice and they're in an elevator with somebody and they say, what do you do? Oh, I'm an attorney. Oh, what kind? And then they have to say, well, we do tax law, and we do family law, and we do this law, and think about how that goes versus just, oh, I'm a family lawyer who specializes in, we usually represent the female side of the case, and we're northern Chicago. I actually know law firm that this is the case. And she's like, if you ask her, she can tell you in 3 seconds who they are and what they do. That practice is busier than anybody I know, and that is like, she is that specific. And so it comes back to, sure, if you're a huge firm that has 30, 40 lawyers, and when that attorney gets asked, what do you do? He's like, well, I do family law, but my practice serves many different things, right? It's easy for them to communicate that. And so think about that through your marketing. Like, you do all of the things. Every one of those channels has a cost associated with it. So if we're looking at SEO, if I have to win on criminal defense, like, that's going to get expensive. If I have to win on, injury attorney, like, that's obviously super expensive. Then we have to do family. Like, if you hit all of these channels, there's a cost associated with it. There's also an emotional cost to, you have to think about how you are servicing every one of those ICPs, not just at your service level, but also, like, I'm going to ask you, like, well, what makes you unique in each one of these? Doing more doesn't make you unique. It just means you do more because you haven't identified yet who your ICP is. Usually over time, this gets if you stay in business, this will work itself out, because you'll start to get known for one of those channels, and you can narrow in if you can make it that far. Also seen many businesses, law or otherwise, not make it that far because they never got a foothold in their industry, because they did all the things and nobody could ever identify what it is they actually did well. So hopefully that was some good analogies on how to think about that. But yeah, less is more. I mean, you heard me right off the bat say we work with local professionals, doctors, lawyers, and engineers. Like, I know that. We're really good at it. We do other things, but I don't market myself as that. Like, you kind of have to know, like, it's an invite only type thing for some of the other things we do.
Yeah, so there's 2 things that I want to hone in on here. One is, the resistance that comes up for people when they hear this or when we talk about stuff like this is, I don't want to give anything up. And the way that I want you to think about this is, we're not saying no forever. We're saying no for now. And we're not saying you can't accept the work when it comes in. We're just saying your marketing effort has to be specific about something, and the more general you get, the more diluted the message, the harder it is to find the people you're looking for. I would even argue, and this is my second point, I would even argue that it's not just criminal defense versus family law versus personal injury. Within criminal defense, there's
Yes.
DUIs, there's federal cases, there's assault and battery, there's minor charges like shoplifting. There's so many different areas of criminal defense that you can become known for. There are some criminal defense attorneys that they don't want to grow their firm large. Instead, they want their name to be known, and they're looking for that really big trial, the high profile murder case to take on, kind of like the Lincoln lawyer or whatever, like, so you have to know who you are and what you're after, and really get specific about it. The best example I could give, and why is this important, is when you're in the marketplace, you're going to get people's attention when you talk to the pain that they're experiencing. And every one of these people is going through a different situation. The pain is different. It's not have you been arrested, right? Like being arrested for one thing is very different than being arrested for something else. Facing a felony is different than a minor charge. But the best example I could give is in the elder law space. So very often we
Yep.
see elder law in one umbrella, and we've got estate planning and we've got estate administration or probate on the other side of it. And firms are doing both, and they're trying to market to both. But in estate planning, the pain point is I don't want my kids to fight over my stuff when I die, or I want to make sure my wealth goes to my legacy, whatever I want to leave it to. And in probate, the pain point is how do I get mom's house?
You
Right. And they're completely different. Not only are they completely different, but the way to find these people is completely different. When somebody is dealing with the state of their deceased parent, they're going to Google looking for an answer. When somebody needs an estate plan, they don't even know they need an estate plan. You need to educate them. So you have to go and market to them, which means you're probably doing meta ads. You're probably bringing them into a workshop, stuff like that. So understanding who you're working with and what you're trying to solve or achieve is the most important part of the
Mhm.
game. And then from there, we can start to talk strategy. So I feel like there's this fine tuning approach that needs to happen. This get really laser focused on who you serve if you really want to have effective marketing. I'm guilty of my own advice, right? Like profit with law. We deal with all law firm owners. It's too big of a bucket. If I would have just started and said, hey, we only deal with estate planning lawyers or we only deal with criminal defense attorneys, we probably would have grown our business much faster because we would have figured out what their pain point is and we would have honed in on that instead of trying to cater to the entire legal industry. So I think that's so important, and people don't even they don't you don't go deep enough when you're like, all right, you got to get specific. All right, let's do this
Yeah.
practice area.
Yeah. I mean, obviously the personal injury is, all blitz at every marketing channel you can possibly find. And then I do know quite a few estate planners here I'm in Chicago. And that here is really more of a networking game for them. Finding good partners who can refer them business. A lot of times the estate planning attorneys have minimums that they're going to work with. Anytime I hear a financial advisor or a lawyer tell me I have a minimum, I'm like, your marketing channels are very unique to how you're going to get in front of someone if you have a $500,000 minimum, that's a networking, somebody with $500,000 isn't usually surfing Google. They're looking for education. They're looking for how you mentioned having in-person education settings. Like these are completely different marketing strategies than, hey, I'm gonna go do digital marketing, or I'm gonna go, run Facebook ads or Google, or whatever it may be. You might be filling in a workshop. I actually just talked to a financial planner a couple months ago. His minimums were high. Like it. He had some high minimums. They were putting together education settings at a steakhouse here in Chicago. Like that was his whole market. Like, we're gonna fill this up with like a all you can eat paid at like a fancy. That was an expensive event. But when his minimums, I mean, if he did this every quarter and got one client a year, it paid for it, right? Like that was the calculation in his head. So these are the strategy. Like going back to the math of making it make sense is where you got to begin.
100%. Even in your example of personal injury, right? Like personal injury has so many different
Yes.
buckets, right? You could just focus on auto accidents. You could just be focused on trucking. I know at least two attorneys that only do
Uh-huh.
trucking. I know one attorney that only does rideshare.
Yeah. Yeah.
And they're just, they're just representing people who were affected when they were in an Uber or a Lyft. And it's smart because they know that the policies are there. They skip a whole piece of the like the people who are doing trucking and the people who are doing rideshare. They're skipping a whole piece of the puzzle where most people who come in with just an auto accident, you don't even know if the other party was
Uh,
insured. You don't even know if there's coverage there. So you're taking on a case. You're spending money to find a case that might even not be a case. So All of these things are important. Once we get past that, okay, so you know who you are, you know who your ICP is, you've done all of the basic stuff. You got the newsletter going, you got the touch points going, you've made some tweaks to your website, your business profile is complete. Um, are you pushing people or helping people to build the organic side, or paid right off the bat, like as the next step, or is it really dependent on their situation? And I know I always ask layer a few questions, but if it's dependent on the situation, what does it depend on?
So it's usually situational dependent, and that situation is usually geography, which means competition. So if you are in downtown Chicago, your competition is going to be high. It's a more difficult location to be in versus, I don't know, Madison, Wisconsin, right? Like, and it's just, you're not going to have as many dollars spent there. Actually, great analogy. I recently looked at personal injury in Vancouver, and I'm not well versed in Canadian law, but a friend asked me to look at this for a friend of his. Obviously, the lawyers aren't making as much money there, like the attorney. Like, it just was pretty clear because the effort it was going to take to win there, I just was drooling over it. But then I'm like, wait a second, this looks easy to me because I'm so used to competing in the United States, where like we know when the attorney wins in their location, there's a lot of dollars there. And again, the dollar cost, I mean, it was 30% of what it would have been in the United States. So location specific, because it's dependent on how stiff the competition is. If you have a competitor with, a couple thousand reviews who've been around for 30 years, like, it's hard to unseat them as the number one. Just even remove it from a brand perspective, just digitally, when somebody searches, I don't know, rideshare attorney, and they're the one that shows up and they've been around since Uber launched, it's hard to squeeze into that. Now, but if you're in a small suburb where, yes, rideshares show up, it's just not as popular. Like Chicago is one of the first places to have Uber. Maybe it's Naperville, where we really didn't start to see Ubers out there for 5 or 6 years. It's just, you don't have that well entrenched competitor. Those are the easier situations. So it is very location and niche specific. I'd have a handful of clients in Manhattan, and it is a slugfest, right? Like, you have competitors showing up with big budgets. I've had people in LA. And then on the flip side, I had a practice in Louisiana. Like, what do we need to do? Like, literally just stake your flag. Like, you're the only choice for that. And they looked at me and said, well, the last marketing company was charging all these dollars. I said, let me show you something. I said, who are we going to beat? And they kind of looked at it. They said, well, there's nobody else in our industry. I said, right. Like, what do you want? We can run ads. We can do that. I'll run, like, if it's an educational thing, we can do that. But if it's a actual, marketing effort to drive in leads, if someone Googles anything related to this, you win. They brought me a lot more business after that, because like, you're the first person to ever tell us that. I'm like, I can't take your money. Like, I can take your money, but I'm not going to. Like, what have been show you what? What did I do? So it's very location specific, very niche specific. And then back to our original conversation, the more you niche down, the less competition there is. It's just the nature of it. And there's one other thing I would want to touch on both of these conversations is, as you niche down and get to be known as that thing, it becomes easier for who you perceive as your competitors to start referring you business, because you don't have as much overlap with them. Like, oh, this is the rideshare law firm. Like, these guys, like, they know you're efficient. I have a friend who builds cabinets for a living, right? Like, he doesn't build the drawers and the cabinet faces because he can't do it for the same price. So he works with another cabinet maker. And most people are like, well, they're competitors. They're not. They have different specialties, and now they've become some of their best referral partners. It's the same thing. Like, the more you niche down, the more specific you get, the more business shows up.
Yeah, 100%. And I couldn't agree more. I think that there's a massive opportunity when you get really, really specific to tell everybody who you perceive as your competitors that
Hmm.
this is what you do, and invite them to tell you what they
Yep.
specialize in. Because if they haven't thought about it, that'll get them thinking. But now they know who you are, and to your point, like for a regular PI firm to unravel and figure out how to go after Lyft or Uber well, they may not know how to get the best result. They'd rather send it to you and get their 25% piece than blow it for this client if that's not their area of expertise. So it makes 100% sense. As a matter of fact, one of our clients, we push them for this specific tactic. So they're doing personal injury, but they're trying to build their litigation arm. And I said, well, you know how many PI firms are out there that do pre-lit only? Like they just don't have the skill
Yeah.
set to litigate. So they're not doing the best for their clients. They're leaving money on the table. They know that they are, but they don't know that there's another choice. What if you just went and let them all know, hey, look, we're looking to add cases to our litigation for piece. Here's what it looks like. Here's the kind of results we can get for you. It doesn't make any sense for you to settle for less when there's a true opportunity for litigation. Let's create this pathway for you to meet with our attorney, go through the case, and see if it's something that we should take, and what the projected ROI of that is, so you can make a decision whether it's the best thing for your client or help your client
Yep.
decide. And that's just a fabulous way of going about growing your business. So really good stuff. Well, Cameron, as our time draws to a close, this is always a fun conversation, and I appreciate you bringing your flavor to our marketing discussion. Um, I want to close out with two things. Number one, how can people learn more about you? And if they really liked what you had to share, get in touch with you and take next steps. And number two, what's one parting piece of advice or wisdom that you'd like to share with our listeners?
So you can find me on LinkedIn. I try to do my best to be active there. I'm pretty active. Like you message me, I'll respond back. So Cameron LiButti on LinkedIn. If you want to schedule an appointment, our website is bigviewmarketing.com. Those all come into me and our lead account manager, Erica, and she is quick to respond, but that appointment will be set up with both her and I. So parting wisdom, we didn't talk about this. I know this is the talk of the pretty much all the podcasts I usually come into, but we finally have direction from Google on what AI is going to look like. And so we know that the websites will start to need to be optimized here over the next 6 months for AI, the agentic web, as Google is referring to it. And so people will start to be able to be booking with you by talking to their phones or their Alexas or whatever it may be. So the way the web interfaces is, we've been talking about this for a while, but we finally, most people don't know this, there was really no direction from Google on how this was going to evolve up until about a few weeks ago. So we are very busy over here making all of our brands prepared for this new world where, it was it was desktop and it was mobile ready. People may have heard of that before, and now it's agentic ready. So these are three very clearly defined lanes that your business needs to be prepared for here by the end of 2026. So that would be something to start considering, asking your either marketing or development partners how they are going to be handling this.
Well, why don't you lead with that? We could have had a whole conversation about being AI ready
Yeah.
for Google. We'll have to save that for
Yeah.
another
Yeah.
episode, folks. You've been listening to the Profit with Law podcast, and if you enjoyed this episode, you want to make sure to hit that subscribe button so that you get notified when we release a new episode. We're here every single Thursday with a brand new episode, and sometimes we throw in a solo treat, just me talking about my experiences with some of our clients, or something that we've picked up along the way, something that we think is important for you to hear. And often we're bringing in amazing guests like Cameron to share their area of expertise with you. So you can come here and really learn how to grow your business, excel at your business, be more efficient, be more proficient, and at the end of the day, make more profit. So we'd love to see you in back in our viewership or listenership in the near future when we release our next episode. And for now, take care. We'll see you next time. Bye for now.